few decades, the cost of living has drastically increased, which is evident based on the changes in prices of commonly household items. In 1980, a gallon of milk cost $1.60, bread cost around 50 cents, and a gallon of gas cost about $1.20. Today, a gallon of milk costs $4.70, bread costs about $2.50, and a gallon of gas costs about $2. The difference in prices may not seem to be much when just viewing the dollar value, but these increases represent up to a 400% variance in price. With the inflation of prices, you would think that minimum wage would rise as prices did, but it has not. According to U.S. Digital Weekly, the minimum wage of 1980 is higher based on the current dollar value. Raising the minimum wage has been a controversy for many years, but it is not until recently that people started to demand a raise in the current minimum wage. Not only will increasing the current minimum wage help current taxpayers, but it will help struggling families living paycheck to paycheck, as well as the economy. According to Ginnerman, the author of Boosting Paychecks, minimum wage came about when President Roosevelt wanted to make wages fair for the working Americans. So in 1938, the law was passed, making minimum wage officially permanent. Over the next 2 decades, minimum wage would increase gradually. According to Gray, the author of Wage Warriors, in 1968, minimum wage reached its highest at a little over $1.50, which is equal to about $11 today. The current minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, which is a difference of almost $4 in comparison to 1968. The minimum wage controversially blew up recently, around November of 2013, when fast food and retail workers went on strike, demanding a raise in the current minimum wage of $7.25. Some states have raised their minimum wage, but this has yet to be passed by the president, raising the current minimum wage. Many families that are currently making $7.25 an hour are struggling tremendously, even have to take on another job. Collins writes in Minimum Wage of Justice, quote, "Millions of low-wage workers subsist on the federal minimum wage, which is $15,080 a year for a full-time worker. This yearly income is extremely close to poverty. One cannot support themselves, much less a family, with this yearly income." According to Lee, the author of Does Minimum Wage Help the Poor? If the minimum wage was only increased by a few dollars, close to 30 million Americans would get a raise, and almost half are parents. These struggling families could stop worrying how they are going to provide food or shelter for their families, and maybe even start saving money. American taxpayers' dollars goes to support many government expenses, a few examples being Medicaid, food stamps, and other government assistance programs. Many studies have been done to indicate just how much American taxpayers goes to support the government assistance programs. Mantle writes from CQ researcher, quote, "It cost U.S. about $243 billion per year between 2007 and 2011 to provide low-income workers and families with public aid. Many families that are making only $7.25 an hour have to rely on these government assistance programs. According to the study done, almost 50% of families making the current minimum wage are enrolled in government aid programs. With the increase of minimum wage, this number would drastically increase or decrease. The families living on the yearly salary at $7.25 hourly rate are the ones who need the money the most. The increase in the current minimum wage would be put directly back into the economy, because you are only going to putting more money into the hands of the people that need it the most. The past 5 years or so have been hard time for the American economy due to the recession. A boost in the American economy is what the economy needs the most. The boost in the economy will not get America out of $1 trillion of debt we are in, but it's a start. The opposing side argues that with the increase of minimum wage comes job loss in corporations such as fast food restaurants or chain restaurants and small businesses. They argue that the unemployment rate is already too high, so why make it any worse? However, an extensive amount of research has been done on this issue. These economists have found that the employment rate will not be affected with an increase in minimum wage. The same goes for small businesses. As a person who has worked for a small business and know plenty of small business owners. Small businesses have always paid their employees about or above the current minimum wage. Dorn and Cooper writes in the U.S. Digital Weekly that, quote, 85% of small business already pay higher than the minimum wage. An increase in the minimum or current minimum wage will have little to no effect on the small business owners. So what's the solution? The solution I propose is similar to the Minimum Wage Act of 2013, passed by Mayor Gray in the District of Columbia. A similar amendment to the Minimum Wage Amendment needs to be proposed in Louisiana. According to the Middleton Post, the Minimum Wage Amendment Act of 2013 is a three-step process. The minimum wage will increase $1 for 3 years. Starting in 2017, the wage will rise according to the changes in the Regional Consumer Price Index. Basically, that represents a measure of inflation. The minimum wage in Louisiana is $7.25. Raising a minimum wage $1 over the course of 3 years would result in a minimum wage of $10.25. NOLA.com reports. According to the budget process, if the minimum wage was raised to $8.50, over 150,000 workers would get a direct pay raise, and if the minimum wage was increased to around $10 per hour, over 300,000 workers would get a direct pay raise. So what will this do to our state's economy? According to David Gray, with the Louisiana budget, writes, quote, raising the pay rate to $8.50 would create an estimated 1,400 new jobs and produce more than $187 million in the new economy growth. So could you imagine what raising the minimum wage to $10 an hour would do to Louisiana's economy? The topic of raising minimum wage has been a controversy for many years, starting during the 1930s, when minimum wage was established. Minimum wage was established to assure fairness in wages. When a person is only making $15,000 a year on the current minimum wage, the pay is no longer fair. Their yearly income is not enough to support one person, much less a family. However, research disproves the argument that raising minimum wage would cause job loss. FDR writes, the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have little. Thank you.